It is 7 o'clock on this Saturday evening, January 24th, 2026. In the Storm Center, I'm meteorologist Megan Borowski, and we are tracking a developing winter storm as it impacts a good portion of the country and as wintry precipitation moves into the state of South Carolina. Thank you for tuning in tonight on social media. Before we get started, I encourage you to ask questions in the comments or wherever you can type out questions. That's what we're here for in the Storm Center, to help you get through this winter storm. So feel free at any point to type those in, and we'll get to them as they come on in. But let's start out and look at radar. We've been watching it all day here in the Storm Center. And this storm really still spans from anywhere of central and eastern New Mexico all the way now to eastern Virginia. So we're at roughly about 1,700 miles, give or take a few hundred miles in width for this storm. You'll notice on our current radar that the bulk of the snow really falling anywhere from the Texas Panhandle all the way northeastward to the Ohio River Valley, parts of Kentucky, and even Virginia, the mountains of Virginia, the I-81 corridor getting in on the heavier snowfall. It's since moved out of Tennessee. Last time we checked in, there was heavy snow falling over central Tennessee. That has now been replaced by freezing rain and sleet moving through Tennessee, Mississippi, into Alabama. And now if we zoom in to our state, we have a little bit of wintry precipitation moving through the far northwestern upstate. You'll see those pink colors if I zoom in even more toward Greenville and Clemson, even to the just hugging the I-85 corridor on both sides, a couple of pockets of light freezing rain. So that's what's happening right now on our radar. And we do anticipate this shield of pink colors that you see closer to northern Alabama and into Georgia right now. We anticipate that will move eastward over the course of the overnight, and we'll see accumulations starting along the I-85 corridor overnight into tomorrow morning. Right now, current temperatures across the state, I'll zoom to that graphic really quickly, scrub forward. We're finally at the freezing mark in Greenville, and if you look northward toward Rock Hill, we're actually in the upper 20s. In Florence, even along the I-95 corridor, we're below freezing. So we do have a pocket already below freezing, and those freezing temperatures will continue to pop up on this map as we get into the overnight hours and we start to cool off even further during the overnight. I'm sure all of us want to see futurecasts, so that's where we're going to jump right now and time out this storm through the overnight. It looks like our first batch of significant freezing rain will start to push on in during the overnight hours. You'll see 9-10 o'clock on this particular run of Futurecast, skirting through the upstate and even northern portions of the Midland around and shortly after midnight, and continuing for several hours into the morning. Looks like shortly after daybreak, we should see a little bit of clearing in that precipitation, at least for the Midlands. The upstate still could have light freezing rain even as we get toward the mid-morning hours tomorrow. But when you see the radar clearing out, either on Futurecast or tomorrow morning, not going to be safe to go out. I know people have been asking me, when will it be safe to travel? Well, even though it might not be sleeting or there might not be freezing rain falling during the mid-morning hours tomorrow, there will likely be ice on the roadways, and so it will not be safe to travel. Also, we're expecting a second batch of wintry precipitation to move through the entire width of the state during the evening hours tomorrow. So I'll parse this ahead. We'll get through Sunday afternoon here, just a couple of light pockets of freezing rain, especially toward the Midlands, and maybe eastward toward the I-95 corridor in the PD. But as we get toward dinner time, or right before dinner time, that's when our second batch should approach the upstate, and that should move from west to east, transitioning likely to rain. Once we get past sunset and we get a nose of warm air in the mid-levels, we have surface warming just a little bit, enough to support rain, especially as the swath of precipitation approaches the I-95 corridor late Sunday into early Monday morning. Notice on this run of Futurecast, finally things start to settle down before dawn on Monday. So just to reiterate, what we're looking at tonight is our first batch moving through the upstate and the Midlands. That's our first batch of freezing rain. We'll see accumulations from that. brief break during the early afternoon, late morning and early afternoon on Sunday before our second batch along the cold front associated with this weather system, before that second batch moves on through from west to east Sunday evening into early Monday morning. We get to clear out on Monday in terms of freezing rain falling, but ice will likely be sticking around and temperatures will drop off significantly overnight into Monday morning. You see those numbers there. Our low temperatures Monday could fall into the single digits, especially north and west of the capital toward Rock Hill and toward Greenville. Looking at alerts really quickly, we've been mentioning these all day. I still want to mention them. Ice storm warning in effect along the I-20 corridor for counties along I-20 and west through the upstate. Winter weather advisory in effect through about 1 o'clock Monday afternoon for the PD and the low country. You might see the advisory times change on these as we get through the day tomorrow and into early Monday morning, but this is as it stands tonight from the local National Weather Service offices across the state. That ice storm warning for interior counties, winter weather advisory closer to the PD and the low country. I'm going to ask Rob, who's also in the studio with us right now, if we have any questions or comments coming in from our viewers right now.
We do have a comment. Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer says, thank you for the update. So we appreciate that and glad to know that you're watching here on SCETV Facebook.
Absolutely. Shout out to Jennifer. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to jump now also to another graphic that I put together. We've been talking about precipitation accumulations throughout the day, and we've been looking at ranges, or we've been looking at the high-end forecast or the low-end forecast. And actually, I think I need to pull in the storyboard that I had. So we're going to quickly swap storyboards. So bear with me as you see the display go blank there, because I'm going to pull in a different one that I have. So it's loading. Give it a second to think. It's got a lot of data in there. Those graphics are loading on in. But the graphic that I have is going to show you ranges of ice accumulation over the next 24 hours or so. Earlier in the day today, we talked about the low end range, then we talked about the high end range around midday today. And so I kind of put it all together in one graphic so you could see where we are sitting in the middle range to the high range. There we go. The computer woke up on me and decided to join us here. So overall, if you're located east of I-95 in the PD, expect a glaze in terms of accumulations. East of the state capitol, but west of I-95, anywhere from 0.05 of an inch to maybe 1/4 of an inch. And then really the most significant accretions we're expecting to be north and west of I-20, closer to the mountains, where we get that more continual stream of our freezing rain during the overnight hours tonight. We could see up to 3/4 of an inch toward the I-85 corridor and the higher elevation. So these are ranges to kind of think about. I know they might seem broad, but it's a very difficult forecast with this freezing rain. It's all about temperatures from the ground up to the cloud, and it's quite the conundrum. We were joking here in the studio that it's sometimes easier to forecast snow. Rob, I see we have another question coming on in.
A couple of questions. Dottie asks, are there any tornadoes expected, or I'll throw in severe weather outside of what is already severe with the winter weather?
Very good question. Not for South Carolina. Tomorrow we do actually have a risk for some stronger thunderstorms over the Florida Panhandle in the Storm Prediction Center's convective outlook. I wonder if I could pull that in here. I'm not sure that I can. Maybe I can. If we look at day 2 convective outlook, there we go. Storm Prediction Center has actually elevated now. Last time I checked, a little bit earlier this afternoon, we were in a dark green in the panhandle of Florida. That's a level 1 out of 5 risk, but they have now upgraded it for tomorrow to a level 2 out of 5 risk for severe thunderstorms. That doesn't necessarily mean tornadoes. And what I'm going to do is actually in another screen pull up the Storm Prediction Center discussion, because what they like to do is actually outline what mode of severe weather we're looking at. Severe can fall under 3 different categories: tornadoes damaging straight line winds, or hail. And so they like to discuss that more in the outlook. So it looks like our main threat for the Panhandle tomorrow is going to be damaging straight line winds. However, there's a low end threat that there could be a few brief tornado spin-ups toward Pensacola, even westward toward Gulfport as well. So very good question. No severe weather potential for South Carolina. We could see in the low country, you see those light green colors on the map, could see a couple rumbles of thunder as that front barrels on through tomorrow night, but no severe for South Carolina right now. Yes,
another question from Catherine. Catherine asked, how fast is this system moving? Seems like it's later than previously forecasted.
Yeah, that's another great comment. Is earlier in the week we thought that it was going to be a Saturday afternoon into Saturday evening event, but the storm is now still developing along the central Gulf Coast. Now that we have a center of low pressure, and I can actually zoom out and show you on my surface analysis, if I double click here. We now have our center of low pressure along the Gulf Coast that's developed. We see that warm front. That's actually the front that's going to help transition the precipitation into liquid rain likely tomorrow night. But we see that center of low has finally developed. That's going to start to scoot on northward and help to move this thing out of here, accelerate it out of here. It's also tied to the mid and upper levels, the jet stream finally kind of dipping down, and that will allow it to speed up too. Trying not to get into too technical terms. I've been told I do that a lot, so I'm trying not to do that. But we should now see it start to speed up during the overnight, and by Monday morning, we'll be clearing on out finally, at least in South Carolina. We can get rid of all of this wintry precipitation mess, but not temperatures. Rob, anything else?
More specific now questions,
Sure.
Megan, about areas and towns like Blythewood, South Carolina.
All right.
Expected outcomes for Blythewood.
Give me 1 second while I pull up my
And thank
maps.
you, Laura, for that question.
All right, let's go here. Let me get out of wind chill. So I believe Blythewood is just north of Columbia. I can zoom in a little bit here. That's not going to do it for me. I would say just northeast of Columbia, you're looking at, let me reset my camera here, 1/10 of an inch to maybe 2/10 of an inch. Seeing as you're northward, you're closer to that gradient, closer to Rock Hill and to the upstate. That's what we're looking at right now. It may change if overnight we don't see as much coming on through to the east. But that's my best guesstimate right now, 1/10 of an inch to 2/10 of an inch.
Another question from Soraya, if I pronounced her first name correctly. I apologize if not. How would the situation look for Statesboro, Georgia, which is, of course, in the area?
Yes, give me 1 second. Let me get back on that page and let me see one thing really quickly, if I can.
And thank you for these
here.
questions. We really appreciate you watching tonight.
What I'm going to do actually is add another layer so I can get my places to auto-populate. And we're going to do a little bit of a pixel query. Yeah, Statesboro, I think you're a little bit too far south and east to get anything more than a glaze. We will see if that verifies, but I think you're in the clear. If you don't want ice, I think you might see a few dapplings of freezing rain move on through. But in terms of measurable amounts, I think you're going to be okay. I'm also going to add an auto population layer onto this Futurecast graphic so you can kind of see Statesboro pop up there. And I'll move my camera. There we go. So you can actually see Statesboro pop up on the map as we go through time here. You'll see you might get grazed by a few pockets of freezing rain, maybe, but by tomorrow night into Monday morning, you're looking at more rain, and you could actually get a couple of rumbles of thunder tomorrow night. So no snow, nothing measurable freezing rain for Statesboro.
And then there was a question about Spartanburg, and that was in terms of impact and the prospect of power outages.
I would anticipate power outages in Greenville, Spartanburg, anywhere if you're along that I-85 corridor. That's where we're expecting the heaviest accumulations and accretions tonight, especially if that band that we see right now over, let me clear this out and get my That's the layer that I want, especially as we see these pinks over northern Alabama approach from the west tonight. The area that we're expecting the highest accumulations is going to be along that I-85 corridor. So fingers crossed the forecast doesn't verify. It would be nice if we would be wrong and we can get lower accumulations, but even with a 1/4 inch accretion on power lines, you could see power outages. So plan on it. Have your preparations in place, prepare for it and anticipate it, and fingers crossed it doesn't happen. But right now we're looking at, on the high end, Greenville, Spartanburg could get up to 3/4 of an inch of ice. We might back down on that forecast overnight. We'll check back in tomorrow with it. But right now, that's where we're looking, between 3/10 and 3/4 of an inch of ice.
And a couple of questions regarding Columbia.
Sure.
In terms of the timing of when residents can expect precipitation to begin. And then is it expected to be more freezing rain rather than snow? That's a very tough one.
Great, yeah. That's the whole thing that we've been talking about in the Weather Center. So let's go back in time. Let's take a look here. Let me actually move my time settings on what this model is displaying. We're going to go to pretty much right now. We'll go 1 hour in the future, and there we go. Okay, so we've got temperatures displayed on this map. You also have futurecast displayed. So you could get a couple pockets of freezing rain. Over the next couple of hours, I would say it's more likely closer to the midnight hour or shortly thereafter for the heavier freezing rain to arrive, at least according to this model run. Temperatures should be sitting below freezing during the overnight, so any precipitation that does arrive should be freezing rain. Reason being, in the levels above the ground, we do have a warm nose that is moving on in, and that is causing the precipitation that's starting out as snow in the cloud to melt as it's falling. So it melts into a liquid raindrop, but then our surface temperatures will be below freezing. And so when that raindrop hits the cold surface, it refreezes. So that's why, unfortunately, we're not forecasting flakes. I know I enjoy snow a lot more than freezing rain. But that is the reason behind the freezing rain forecast.
And then one more for now. Mina asked about the outcome for Dillon, South Carolina.
Dillon, closer to the I-95 corridor, if I am correct.
Yes.
Kind of near Florence, if I am right as well. You're on the borderline of a glaze to, let me go back to this graphic so I don't misquote myself. You're on the borderline between a glaze and maybe 0.15 of an inch, I would say, toward Florence, and even north and east toward Dillon, toward south of the border. If we go to the futurecast, I want to show you again kind of what we're expecting in terms of timing. Again, it's light tonight as far east as Florence. But you might get continual rounds of lighter freezing rain, which could lead to getting more toward the 1/10 of an inch or 0.15 of an inch. So wish I could give a more definitive forecast, like a pinpoint forecast for Dillon. But certainly you're not expecting as much as farther to the west toward the upstate. So that's my official word right now based off of what I'm seeing in the models that I'm showing you here. We pulled up earlier today some of the webcams. I know it's dark, but we can kind of pop into at least the I-85 corridor, see how things are going. Looks like there are folks out and about on the roadways, and it looks like traffic is moving along nicely. We really haven't had much in the way of precipitation yet, and so hopefully these folks are going on home, making their final preparations and kind of wrapping things up. I know we were looking before in Tennessee at some of the snow that has fallen before. The roadways are blanketed in Tennessee. That has now switched over to our pink colors. So driving is going to become even more treacherous in Tennessee as the night goes on. But you can see there fewer cars on the road and one way each way on our highway travel in Tennessee. Let's jump back to alerts just so we can have that full screen. And then I think if we don't have any other questions, we're going to wrap things up for this evening. Oh, looks like Rob does have some questions.
One more from Nina, a general weather question.
Sure.
Wondered about the difference between flakes and freezing rain.
So flakes would be snowflakes, right? Mm-hmm. So, and it all goes back to, let me pull up one of my graphics. I think this one will be a help. All right, so generally speaking, we're not going to go into atmospheric dynamics tonight or ever. But generally speaking, when we're talking about winter precipitation, we have the entire profile of the atmosphere, so from the ground all the way up to the cloud, is below freezing. And so your precipitation is going to start out as a snowflake, and it's going to fall through the column of the atmosphere and stay frozen. And so it's a snowflake when it reaches you at the surface. Now, when we get to the sleet and the freezing rain scenario in the wintertime, you have your precipitation starting out as a snowflake, but as it falls through the atmosphere, it encounters a pocket of warmer air. In the case of sleet, it's a thin pocket of warmer air. It's enough for the snowflake to melt, but then it encounters a relatively thick layer of sub-freezing temperatures before it gets back down to the surface. And so that melted snowflake now has time to refreeze, but it's not in little spears of ice, for lack of a better word, that kind of coagulate into a snowflake. It's more of just like a little piece of an ice cube, like or an pellet. Ice chip. Yeah, like an ice pellet, exactly. So that's the case for sleet. For freezing rain, you have a deeper warm pocket. And so what happens is our snowflake melts. It doesn't have enough time to refreeze. So it's liquid when it reaches you as a person standing at the surface, but if the surface temperature is cold enough that the raindrop falls onto, it can refreeze right as it's falling. And that's why you almost get like a glazed donut sort of effect on every surface when you have the freezing rain. And of course, rain in the wintertime, it will start off as a frozen precipitation, as a snowflake, but then it encounters a layer of warm air as it's falling all the way to the surface, and it stays as rain. So that's your science lesson for the day. Hopefully I answered the question, but that is why we are seeing freezing rain in South Carolina, because temperatures aloft, I'm not sure if I have the graphic in this particular storyboard, but we expect temperatures aloft to have a little bit of a warm up, and that is going to, there it is, I found it. I have so many graphics here to show you guys that this one got lost. But this is a great kind of depiction of what's going on. On the left-hand side for each location, that's surface temperature that I have plotted, forecast surface temperature. And on the right-hand side is the temperature, the forecast temperature for higher up in the atmosphere. This isn't for this doesn't show the temperature throughout the entire column, but it gives us an idea of what are things looking like aloft, maybe. And you can see as we go through time here that our temperatures aloft are well above freezing, but near the surface we might be below freezing, like in Greenville or in Rock Hill, and that's why we have the freezing rain scenario. Rob, another question?
One more. Darlene is asking about Sumter. How does it look in Sumter? Is right there in your map.
So we can see it just to the east of Columbia there. We're looking at, let me go farther back in time so we can kind of look at later on tonight. Looking good. A couple of pockets perhaps of some freezing rain before midnight. But it's probably after midnight if you're going to get your accretions. It's likely after midnight through mid-morning tomorrow. And then throughout the day, should stay relatively dry. Again, a couple of pockets of freezing drizzle possible. Then tomorrow night, as our second batch arrives, it will likely start out, at least according to this model run, likely start out as freezing rain and then potentially transition over to liquid rain overnight tomorrow into Monday morning as that second batch of precipitation from the system barrels on through. Then, of course, we didn't mention in terms of, I don't think I plotted on here on this live stream yet, our temperatures and wind chills, but once our precipitation moves on out, we're looking at quite frigid wind chills moving into our area. We've got single digits Monday night. Notice in Rock Hill and Greenville, we're at 9 for our wind chill. We're at 19 for our wind chill Monday night in Columbia, and even down toward the coastline, we're at 27 in Myrtle Beach, 32 in Charleston Monday night for your wind chill. And it doesn't get any better for Tuesday morning. We're in the single digits Tuesday morning as well. So any residual rainfall or ice, the ice will stay as ice overnight and the rainfall will freeze. So please keep that in mind if you do plan on heading out and about on Tuesday morning. I wouldn't be surprised if we see closures or delays toward the upstate because roads will likely be very treacherous. Not to mention we might still have power outages. Fingers crossed we won't, but we might. Any other questions right now
I think
coming in?
that's it for now.
All right, then with that, I'm going to pull back up our estimated storm totals. This is of the latest data. Again, this could change depending on what happens during the overnight hours, but this is what we have right now as our forecast. We're going to be watching things overnight. We'll be back with you tomorrow morning to give you the latest forecast, to give you what's going on. And stay safe. Make sure you stay prepared. And from all of us at SCETV, we will see you tomorrow. Have a good night.